Moving on, our buddy Dave Olson is back, and he says, second time asking. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to miss you first time. Trump has ruffled some feathers, you don't say, by saying he wants to cancel or revisit the contracts with Boeing and Lockheed for Air Force One and the F-35, respectively. We know how reluctant you are to talk about aviation matters. Airplanes again. But just this once, is it a good move, a bad move, both, or neither? I think it's an extremely good move, and I'm going to just get that said, and then I'm going to go back over the caveats. For example, Trump said he was going to cancel the $1.2 billion plan to upgrade Air Force One, get a new Air Force One. Some people have said that, yes, that looks great, but the new Air Force One is actually going to be cheaper. The old one is much more expensive to maintain. And that, in fact, is if it's not true, it could certainly be true. But there comes a point where there's something that actually trumps, if you'll pardon the expression, it trumps the minutia of practicality. And as long as it's relatively confined, you don't pay a big price for this. And for me, it's the optics. It's the example. In other words, if it turns out that you could have actually saved money long term by spending the $1.2 billion on Air Force One, I don't think that's as important as the optics of saying we're going to cancel this contract. This is the thing that the president is really capable of doing. This is his actual first opportunity, really, and really it's ultimately his job. Can you persuade the American people to do things that you perceive are in their interest? And it's very hard to get people to cut their own budgets and ask them to get a haircut when you're not willing to do it too. Again, unfortunate choice of examples with Donald Trump's case, but in any event, you get the idea. When Donald Trump says, no, we're not paying for it, it's too expensive, whether or not it would have been a smart move is not as irrelevant as the signal that is sent to the American people that this is a different time. We're not going to just continue to suck up more and more and more money like it doesn't exist. We are going to look at these things on a one by one basis, and if it's a bad deal, we're gonna cancel it. Ori Moore says that Trump just had a meeting with Boeing. They said they're going to build it for less. Imagine my shock. See, this is the thing. It's Donald Trump, I suspect, is a very good negotiator, and he's done more in 5 weeks, 6 weeks than Obama's done in 8 years. But it's not even a question really of your negotiating skills so much as your willingness to say that this money belongs to people. It's the American people's money. And for 50 years now, we haven't treated it that way. Here's a giant vat of money, and if it's not enough, we'll print some more and we'll spend it on whatever we want to. We don't care what it costs. This cost plus buying of military hardware. I'm not going to go into that again. I've covered it many times, but it's just crazy. Yeah, Hyperion team says save money. Why would you do that? Exactly. Why would you? If the government's purpose, what do you want to save money for them? It's not our money. It's this kind of thing is great, and I'll go the same distance with the Carrier air conditioning deal. People said that, yeah, well, when you get right down to it, Carrier's going to stay, but they're going to automate, and they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and besides, we don't like protectionism and all the rest. Yes, all true, but the optics of it, the effect it has on the American people, in my opinion, supersedes all of this. It is a signal that things are changing. And I think it's a signal that he's doing what he said he would do, which is making America great again. Now, again, you can get on your conservative high horse about mercantilism and about protectionism, and I understand this, and I'm not negating it. I'm not saying we should go to a tariff war, but what he's doing is he's giving the American people hope that things are going to get better, and that, in my opinion, so long as it's not destructive to America or illegal, that wins right now. We have been, our 8 years of hope and change have given us no hope and pocket change, and we need to let them know it's not the same deal anymore. If Boeing suddenly says, hey, you know what, actually we can do it for less, that means they were overcharging us and significantly overcharging us. And not only does it save us on that particular Air Force One deal, it also means it's going to save us on everything else, because now they understand that there's not a guy who is just going to pitch money in with a pitchfork and just keep shoveling in as much as you ask for. During the Civil War, when the war really started, they had to supply hundreds and hundreds of thousands of things that the U.S. Army didn't have. It was token force 20, 30,000, I want to say. And now they've got the need for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of uniforms and shoes and horses and mules and food. You've got these gigantic armies that are massing for the Civil War, and the government didn't have anything. And these contractors would say, there was a quote in Shelby Foote's book. There's something like, you will get any price that you have the courage to ask from them. And I thought, that's exactly right. They need it. It's not their money, so they would get any price that they had the courage to ask for. And that's where the word shoddy came from, by the way. Shoddy is kind of a cloth. It's not really a cloth. Let's just think of it as a material. Basically, shoddy is if you take all kinds of cotton tailings and lint and all these little pieces of cotton and all these little itty-bitty things, and instead of it being woven together and making nice cotton fabric, what they would do is they would use these as sort of a substance matrix, and they'd put it in some kind of a gelatin, basically, and they'd stamp it out. And you would have these boots made out of shoddy, or shoes made out of shoddy, or pants made out of shoddy, or hats. And the second they got wet, they just simply dissolved. That's where the term shoddy came from. It was terrible stuff, but they didn't care. These guys didn't care if a soldier's shoes fell apart when he's marching across the entire length of Pennsylvania and Virginia to save this country. What does he care? He's got his money, off he goes. So, yeah, I think that's really a big deal, Dave, is the optics of it. When he says Carrier is staying, we're canceling the Air Force One upgrade, which is my airplane. It's too expensive. We don't need it. When he says IBM just added 25,000 jobs, $50 billion came in from this Japanese investor. These things are really, really, really important because it gives people the perception that things are happening. And once they get the feeling that things are happening, then things actually happen. So I just could not be happier with the guy since the election. I think he's been magnificent. And if he's not magnificent, if he starts doing things that we really don't like, then we'll deal with him then. It's a tough thing to say, you know. It's almost like kickstarting things. You really just do have to sometimes get the ball rolling rhetorically, and then it's like priming the pump. You know, you just get it started. Once it gets started, it rolls on its own. So you know, if we're talking about tariffs and protectionism all across the board, then I'm going to oppose it. If he's talking about one or two high-profile deals in order to tell companies that, you know, let's re-examine whether or not you can keep them here, I don't have any problem with that. There's a difference between, in my opinion anyway, there's a difference between giving a business taxpayer money and giving them tax incentives. One is where you take money from people by force and hand it to a corporation that maybe is not succeeding, like Solyndra. And the other one is basically saying, listen, if you can make a good case for this, then we'll let you go with a light tax burden for a while because you could develop an entire new industry. You'll be paying jobs, and we'll take a look at it as the time goes on. But a tax incentive and things like that is tremendous, I think. And if they would just wake up to the fact that if you gave everybody a tax incentive, imagine what the country would look like.